What's up, and welcome back to the Football House, presented by House Enterprise, our weekly college football pick'em show. We got a full house today. We got Sam Basil, Cole Hughes, Jake Zimmer, Gracie Marks, and myself all on the line. Cole almost had a perfect week. We got to, hats off to Cole. He's been on fire. The only game that he missed last week was NC State plus 6.5, but he's leading at the top of the leaderboard, 23-12. Crew, first off, congrats to Cole and to everyone else. How are we doing?
Should we let the winner speak? Let's let the man speak.
Yeah, not much to say. I guess beginner's luck. Really lucky. It was a good week. Haven't had too many of those, so I'll take it. But looking forward to making some more picks this week.
As he's driving the car casually, just
in the
hanging out.
We condone responsible driving. He is in the passenger seat.
Yes.
So we'll check out what happened last week. So Cole, near perfect. Some of the big Clemson did sneak out on top. So obviously NC State did not cover the 6.5. Going around the board, Zimmer, Louisville minus 15 and Iowa State minus 3 were some of the big L's. For Gracie and myself, Alabama and Arkansas was a scoring matchup, a scoring machine. So that under was no chance to live. Other than that, we had some wins. We had some good wins on the board. And for the final standings as of week 6, we got Cole in first at 23, 12, and 3. Gilly in second, 31 and 24. Myself in third, 25, 21, and 3. Clubfoot Jim at 7, 7, and 1, followed by Basil, 17 and 20. Gracie, 9, 12, and 1. And Zimmer, 17, 22, and 2. But we're bouncing back this week. We're all going to get some winners. We're all going perfect. Let's send the good vibes. Good vibes this stream.
I need some winners after the Air Force blunder. They won 13-10, by the way. So Basil, I don't know if you picked Navy to win outright, but they definitely covered. So
I did not pick Navy to win outright. I just took the cover on that. Yeah, this was a good week for me. This was a big bounce back week for me. I still got a ways to go before I'm pulling a winning record, but that pick and my TCU pick. Well, first let me say my Navy pick. That is just, military academy football is boring. It's on the ground. It's usually rainy or muddy. I don't think this game was, but that's just the way they go. They might as well still be playing leather helmets. So that's why any double-digit spread in a service academy football game is not the way to go. And I was honestly a little shocked considering how good Air Force is this year. I was a bit more shocked. Not that I am constantly doubting myself, but I was watching the Fordham game while TCU was going off against Oklahoma, and you guys threw in the chat like, "Oh my God, Basil, nice job with the TCU pick." And I was thinking, I was looking at it, and I was like, "Wow, nice job me with the TCU pick," because I picked it, and I have to admit I was kind of bluffing on you guys a little bit. I was not expecting it to be as safe of a bet as I thought it was, but you know what? Oklahoma, these past 2 years have had trouble bouncing back. I don't know what's going on in that locker room.
And we have the Oklahoma as a game this week, so we will, we'll see what the crew says. So to kick things off, who would like to start?
I can start.
All right, Gracie on the board.
All right, yeah. So speaking of that game, I'm on Oklahoma plus 7. They're coming off 2 shit pumpings, I would say, and I think this is a good. I don't think they necessarily will win, but I think they're not as bad. They are bad. Their defense is horrible, but I still think their offense is solid. And it's hard for me to see them lose 3 in a row or, lose a third in a blowout fashion. So I like them to cover the plus 7. I know it's a difficult spot just because they're coming off 2 just clownings and nobody wants to back them. But this is a huge rivalry. I think it will be close, and I'm gonna take the 7. I'm on NC State. money line, bounce back again. Tough L last week. They're back at home. FSU is like meh. Like they were undefeated, then they got clowned by Wake, and now they have to play NC State on the road. So I just think NC State is just going to be too much for FSU, and I like NC State money line. Then I'm on Utah first half, -2 or whatever, -2.5. Against UCLA. UCLA is ranked and undefeated, but don't get it twisted. It's not like a football school. Nobody cares. I haven't seen one person talking about it from LA that they're undefeated. I think there will be more Utah fans at the game at the Rose Bowl this Saturday. I think it'll be a Utah home game, and Utah is just like, wait. I mean, besides the loss week 1, they're just way better than UCLA. So I like them to win outright, but I think they're going to be up at half. So I'm taking them -2. I just don't get it. Like UCLA is not that good. And then I'm on BYU +3.5. This is a game that's in Vegas this week against Notre Dame. And Notre Dame, I told myself I would never take them. So I'm taking BYU. BYU is a lot closer to Vegas than Notre Dame is. So I think it's going to be a BYU home game in Vegas on Saturday. And so I'm taking them +3.5. And I think they're a better team than Notre Dame at the end of the day. And they're going to have the crowd in Vegas. So I like that. I like that game a lot. And then my game of the week is Kansas +7, college game day, football school. I mean, how can you not take them this week? So I'm taking Kansas +7. TCU, big game last week on the road, tough spot. So I'm taking Kansas +7 for the college game day game.
Love it. Now, obviously not on your board, but I'm just curious. Kansas winning that game?
I don't know. It's tough. It reminds me of the App State thing a little bit, where like college game day was there. It's going to be hype. Like people are like finally talking about them. I think they could win outright, but just going to play it safe, take the 7 points. TCU, big letdown spot after last week, and I'm just going to ride the points.
Ride the points. I like it. Let's swing over to Cole, the winner.
Alrighty, yeah. So I'll start with my locks for the week. For FBS lock this week, I'm going to go with Tennessee. Taking Tennessee over LSU Tigers. They're going into Death Valley. They've been playing some really good football. They've won some big games already this year. They had that overtime win early in the year against Pitt, which was really impressive. Last week they ended up beating Florida. They looked really good. So I think it'll be a tight game between them and the Tigers. It seems like Brian Kelly is getting the Tigers back on track somewhat. But I think the ball is too much for them. I think they go into Baton Rouge and they get that W this week. So that'll be my FBS lock. On the FCS side of things, I'm going to take Yale over Dartmouth. This is an interesting pick. The last couple of years, Dartmouth has had their numbers, Yale's numbers. I think Yale's going on a 4-game weekend during this weekend's game. So I think they're going to turn that around. Dartmouth has had a couple tough losses the past few weeks in overtime. They lost to Sacred Heart in double overtime 2 weeks ago, then lost again to Penn last week in overtime. That's kind of hard to bounce back after 2 overtime losses. So the game is in Connecticut, so I'm going to take Yale money line to beat Dartmouth in the FCS department. And then as for my 3 regular picks, my first pick is going to be, let me just check this real quick. So Washington over Arizona State. I have Washington covering 2 touchdowns, -14. They've looked unbelievable in the Pac-12. Their offense is electric. Michael Penix, their quarterback, he was really good when he was in Indiana, and Indiana had that one good year a couple years ago. He transferred over to Washington. Their offense has been electric this year. They're averaging over 500 yards per game. Arizona State just fired their head coach, Herm Edwards, a couple weeks ago, so I think that'll be tough to bounce back. So I'm going to take Washington there. The next one that I have is Air Force over Utah State, -10. Another team that's been interesting. I know we briefly just spoke about it. They only beat Navy by 3 points last week, but Air Force has looked good, and Utah State is having a really tough year. They're only averaging around 17 points per game, which is not many, and they're really letting up a lot of yards on defense. Over 400 yards on defense per game, over 180 yards on the ground against other teams, and Air Force likes to ground and pound, so I think they'll cover the 10 points against Utah State. And then my final pick for this week is going to be Duke, -3.5 against Georgia Tech. Duke's looking pretty good. Their quarterback, Riley Leonard, he's having a good year, still throwing over 70% completion rate, which is unbelievable this far into the season. And, they're first in the division of the ACC, their division that they're in. So they're neck and neck with UNC, which is a rival, obviously. They're not going to want to lose to Georgia Tech and lose that #1 spot to UNC before they play them. So I'll take that -3.5, and those are my picks, and I'll keep my rivalry and game of the week picks for later on in the show.
Love it, love it. Mr. Basil.
Gotta unmute myself there. All right, so yeah, I have a pretty standard card this week. A lot of fun stuff, honestly. I kind of agreed with Jake earlier today in that in terms of getting some like really confident picks, this was a tough week. But in terms of picking some fun games, I think this was a great week. So first up, let me talk about my locks. Tulane -3. This is not a team that I would really expect to make a go at the American this year, but at 4-1, I think the Green Wave from the Green Wave from New Orleans. I should know that. My roommate went to Tulane. They're 4-1 this year. They got a real good shot. Their offense is not really as explosive as you would want it to be to cover a 3 points, anything larger than like a 7-point, 10-point spread. But against ECU, this Tulane defense is really prone to forcing a lot of turnovers. So if anything, as ECU is trying to make like a sort of a game-winning drive or anything like that, trying to maybe tie the game, look for the defense to come up big, like they've done so many times for this Tulane team this year. So yeah, Tulane -3 for my FBS lock of the week. I'm gonna go with Cole on this one, like I've done many times with my FCS lock of the week, and I'm also gonna go Yale. Even though it sucks that Ivy League teams cannot compete in the FCS playoffs, I think we might be looking at one of the most fun and competitive Ivy League seasons we've seen in a really long time. Yale is just they're a really strong team, and if anything, just like I always feel like these picks are just a reason to get people watching FCS football. Another reason specifically with Yale is they're debuting these like really funky Walter Camp inspired throwback uniforms. And it's kind of a nod to how basically the Ivy League started college football. They basically invented American football. And so there are these uniforms that are kind of made to look like the old time like 1880s like football sweaters with the laces. So if you want to see something kind of weird on the field this weekend, tune into Yale. As for my other picks, this is kind of like a sneaky rivalry game. This isn't our main rivalry game of the week, but it's the milk can, the battle for the milk can between Boise State and Fresno State. Two teams that, you might not expect California to be the #1 milk producer in the United States, but they are. And both these programs have had a history of being sponsored by local milk manufacturers. So that's where the name of this rivalry comes from. And I just cannot put faith in a team like Fresno State that lost by 5 points to UConn last week. So that means I have to go Boise State -7 because otherwise I'd just be insane. Up next in the ACC, I've got Florida State +3 over NC State. I know that's kind of a tough pick. That's going to be really, really close. But I think Florida State has continued their climb up. They're just peeking through the AP top 25. You know, they've been a consistent football house top 25 team for the past couple weeks now. So I would really love to see them have a go at it. And finally, Oregon State -7. I mean, they're just an incredibly solid team in the Pac-12. I think they're a sneaky contender for the Pac-12 title. So I'm going to go with them. And for rivalry, I can do my rivalry now, right? Or should I wait?
Yeah, we'll hold it. Hold it.
Oh yeah. So those are my 5, standard picks there.
Hell yeah. Sweet. All right, Mr. Zimmer, it is your turn.
Okay. Let's get the elephant in the room. I had a very crappy week last week. It was awful. I'm ashamed. And I did the most research last week. So I'm thinking a lot less this week, and I'm just going to go with my gut a bit more. We start with Memphis. They limit their turnovers really well this year. Their quarterback, Seth Hennigan, has only thrown 1 interception so far. Typical air raid game for Memphis, as we've seen all year. So now we have enough data. We're in 5-6 games that we're pretty comfortable with picking them -3 over Houston here. Now, Houston started off the year in the national spotlight, right? But the problem with them this year is they've started really slow. It's going to be really tough to climb out of the hole at Memphis. And no team in the FBS has also been called for more penalties than Houston, too. They get 10 per game, and they almost get dung 100 yards. That's not going to fly against a team like Memphis, who will run all over you. They'll pass the football really well. Give me Memphis -3 here. Miami -3.5 over UNC is where I'm going. It was originally 5.5 and came down to 3.5 because Miami might have some injury questions and things like that. Both these teams won considerably last week, right? UNC 41-10 over Virginia Tech, which was resounding. They were only 9.5-point favorites there too. Miami, though, played Bethune-Cookman, and they just, to use Gracie's term, they shit pumped them 70-13. They only pushed against the 57-point spread too, which really sucks. But this game is what Miami needs, right? They're frustrated after losing by 2 touchdowns to Middle Tennessee State a few weeks ago. Mario Cristobal makes his statement win this week. Quarterback Tyler Van Dyke starts to get it together. It's now or never for the Canes. And both of these teams are awful against the spread too. It's around less than 33% over the last 2 years against the spread. So Miami -3.5 there. I'm also going to take Duke. To Cole's points, Riley Leonard has been excellent. Georgia Tech hasn't impressed me right now, so we're going 3.5 for Duke. And then finally, the UConn money line over FIU. I can't believe I'm saying this, folks. UConn got to win, as Sam said. First win this year over Fresno State. The UConn football account tweeted him Mora. And Jim
that was clever.
Him. That was
clever.
I was very impressed. That was so awesome. So, meanwhile, Florida International is playing UConn this week. And FIU, we talked about this. I think Tondo picked them. Went to 2 overtimes with Bryant earlier in the year. So, toss UConn the bone. Give them the momentum. Ride the hot wave. We're going UConn money line. For locks, we're going to go Utah -3.5. And I think Utah is an interesting one because they are consistently in the top 15. And they really haven't looked better after just crushing Oregon State last week. UCLA, on the other hand, it's a disgrace that they get to play in the Rose Bowl. Decent football team, but my God, 500 fans are showing up to this. Really sucks. Cameron Rising on Utah has been a force. He's carried them to a top 10 level offense in all Power 5 schools. They're going to move the ball really well, as they've done all year, against the UCLA defense that's good, but not good enough to stop the Utes. Give me Utah here. Harvard money line over Cornell is going to be my FCS lock too. Nationally televised. The bright lights are on. I think I'm sticking with the Ivy theme of, who doesn't love betting on Ivy League football? Harvard was fantastic last year. They're good this year. Although Cornell got a good effort from a breakout quarterback, Jamison Wong, last week, the Harvard defense is going to be too much. I think Harvard is just a bit more, they're showing a bit more expertise than Cornell has. They've been here before. They understand the task at hand. Harvard money line in a primetime Ivy League matchup. I'm really looking forward to that one.
Solid picks. Solid picks. All right. What do we got cooking this week? So I'm going to be honest. Similar to Zimmer, didn't put too much thought into this week, but more because I'm in a sports betting hangover. Preseason hockey, preseason basketball, NFL, playoff baseball coming up. I was all over the place. So this one came from the gut today, and we're going to see how it goes. So I'm starting off with Northwestern plus 10. Wisconsin just fired Paul Christ, and Northwestern covered 10 against two other Big Ten teams this year in Penn State and Nebraska. I think it's a generous slot, so I don't think they'll win the game, but I like the plus 10 on that. I have no confidence in the Badgers whatsoever. My next pick is Kansas State -2. Obviously, people are going to be, pretty biased with Iowa State's loss to Kansas or whoever, who's Kansas State playing? Iowa State, right? I think so. I don't have
Iowa State, yes.
Yeah. So people are going to obviously buy into the hype that, they lost to Kansas when they should have won. Love the 2-point spread, but I think Basil said it last week that Kansas State did not get enough love on this show. So I'm going to give love to Kansas State at -2. The next one is Rutgers +3 against Nebraska at home. Are you serious? I will never disrespect Rutgers after they treated me well the past couple weeks. This one is a no-brainer for me. It's not going to be my lock, but I love it. Similarly, Auburn +30 in one of the oldest rivalries in college sports. Georgia proved the last 2 weeks that these double-digit point spreads are not in their favor, and they're not this elite powerhouse. Well, they still are a powerhouse, but they're not this juggernaut that will, always guarantee a win. So I like it because it's 30 points. Georgia still obviously win this game. And then similarly, what people have said before, BYU +3.5, I think is a good play. Notre Dame is fraudulent. We'll never bet them again. My FBS lock, Tennessee -3 over LSU. LSU got lucky over Auburn. I'm not buying too much hype into that. I think Rocky Top will win this all the way. My FCS lock are the Bryant Bulldogs because they're playing Charleston Southern, which is who, what, where, when, and why of college football. Like, this should be an easy spot for the Bulldogs. And we'll go into the game of the week and the rivalries after.
Tonto, I will say, I think that's next week, Charleston Southern, but Southern Connecticut in the same vein.
Is it Southern Connecticut this week?
That's, I won't call it the easy way out because they're a D2 team, but,
so
but I would hope
same thing goes.
We'll add that to your card for next week.
I'll add it, and that'll be my lock. Mount it up.
It's interesting too. I want to talk about Nebraska because I slandered them last week. I gave them a lot of bullshit, and they decided to beat Indiana. So now I really don't know what to do with Nebraska. It looks so tasty to bet +3 Rutgers or even Rutgers money line at home. I may be in on that because I still think Nebraska has wronged us too many times.
A Friday Night Lights in New Jersey is going to be, that's an electric factory from the students. They're hyping up their pregame in the weekend with this game. Nebraska obviously has a lot to prove, but, to be an underdog at home where Rutgers has been somewhat impressive this year, not like crazy good, but they're holding their own. I like the +3 spot.
I also think the over-under is uncomfortably low. It's at 49. And Nebraska, their last couple of weeks, it's been 35-21, 49-14, 45-42, whereas Rutgers as well. I mean, they lost 49-10 last week to Ohio State, and then they had some low games, but I mean, they beat Wagner 66-7. I mean, that over kind of looks pretty appetizing as well.
I'm staying away from the over-unders. They have not been kind. They have not been kind. And I was riding the first half bets, but the crew's been a little icy on those. So I'm sorry, Gracie.
Oh, it's okay. I was thinking about doing it this week, but I need to take I'm taking the Utah, but USC, I'm taking the week off. They got a big week next week, so just taking the week off.
I know I don't want to hate on the Trojans just yet, but
they're gonna get clowned next week. Trust me, they will get clowned at Utah. this is going to be like a big slice of like humble pie for them because they've had like cupcake teams. I guess Oregon State was like legit. That was like sweating, like they barely won, but it's cupcake teams after cupcake teams, and Utah on the road is going to be really tough. So I'm looking forward to that. I'm excited to see what the line opens at, but it's going to be tough for them.
Right on. Actually, while we have you in the solo shot, you had for your game of the week, you have Oklahoma covering, correct?
Yeah, I have them covering. I just don't see them losing 3 in that serious blowout fashion. Like, it's just tough for me to see. I feel like I don't even remember all the time, but is this like game usually split like crowd wise because they're so close, or does like the field advantage, like does it play any difference in the game at all?
So I think they normally play in a neutral site. I believe this year I know it's going to be in Dallas.
Mhm.
At the Cotton Bowl in Dallas.
Yeah, so I think they normally play in a neutral site, and usually it's pretty even because you have Oklahoma, Austin, they're right there next to each other, state-wise. So pretty sure both fan bases make the trek, and it's just an electric atmosphere.
And Cole, who do you have for game of the week?
So for a game of the week or a rivalry?
Game of the week.
So game of the week, that's Kansas and TCU. So both these two programs this year have been, unbelievable. We've spoken about Kansas a bunch. They have surprised us completely. Normally they are a trash football program, but they're going off this year. I think it's going to be a really good game. They both have been playing extremely well, and these two teams, they are so similar. While I was doing some research prior to the show, just looking at their stats across the board, it's actually unbelievable how similar these two teams are. Just to kind of give you guys some background on that, they're both averaging over 40 points a game on offense, and their defenses are allowing, roughly around 20 points. So they're pretty much similar, both offensively and defensively. And then if you dig into their, offensive players on each side, their players both in passing, rushing, and receiving are so similar. It's crazy. So TCU's quarterback, Max Duggan, he's got 997 passing yards with 11 touchdowns this year. And then on the other side, Jalen Daniels for Kansas, he has 983 passing yards and also 11 touchdowns. So there's only a discrepancy there of about 14 passing yards between the two. They both have the same amount of passing touchdowns. TU's running back, Kendra Miller, he's got 386 rushing yards on 51 carries. And then for Kansas, Devin Neal, 333 rushing yards on 49 carries. So they're both averaging about 50 carries, or they both have had 50 carries over their seasons this far, both in the 300 for rushing yards. And then for the two teams and their top receivers, TCU's Tate Barber and Kansas' Luke Grimm, both exactly have 208 receiving yards for each of their teams. So these two teams are so similar. It's going to be a hell of a game. I think it's gonna be tight. They both like to score points and not give up too many points. But I'm gonna take TCU to win, go into Kansas and win that game. I do think Kansas covers the +7, and I have a score of TCU winning 35-31 for the game.
I have the same too. I'd love to bet Kansas money line. I really, really would, but I think they will cover. Obviously, they're 5-0 against the spread, but TCU does deserve the tip of the cap for the win.
I will chime in. I trash Kansas. I'm a known Kansas hater. I'm going to put this out into the universe. But, you look at TCU. I've got it on the side here. Here are their wins. Colorado was 38-13. Tarleton State, just recently D1, 59-17. SMU is 42-34. Then Oklahoma 55-24. I don't really care who it is. They've been great, and their defense has been pretty good too. Kansas, the resume is a little bit weaker. You've got Tennessee Tech, West Virginia, who's been god-awful. Oh, I can't stand it. I was so high on them to start the year. Houston, okay. Duke is all right too. I think TCU wins this game strictly because they have the better defense. I think the quarterbacks speak for themselves. TCU wins 40-33 is going to be my score. I think this is going to be steamed out with the over-under too, which I think is already at 68 this week.
All right. Basil?
Yeah, I mean, not to repeat so much that's already been said. Cole, I couldn't really hear you when you were laying out all those stats. I mean, I know you were talking about their rolling offenses. But did you mention the fact that not only is TCU averaging 40 points a game, but 40 on the road?
Yeah, I didn't even know on the road. I just said overall,
yeah.
But that's crazy on the road.
Yeah. So a couple of some stuff that I've been looking at. They're averaging 40 a game on the road, and so I mean the fact that they're able to do that against teams in the Big 12, Kansas is a team in the Big 12, but I mean there's a lot bigger atmospheres, right? Historically than Kansas. For them to be able to do that just shows that this game's going to be a shootout. And not to repeat too much of what's been said already, but I mean it's just going to come down to which offense really makes the first mistake here. So I'm going to go TCU 42, Kansas 38. So that's going to have TCU to win and then Kansas to cover the points.
And then Gracie, you also have Kansas +7.
Yeah, I think they'll keep it close. I like what you guys are saying about TCU winning outright, but I just think the game day, it reminds me of the App State thing. Troy, probably should have won that game, but App State pulled off a miracle and somehow won. And it reminds me of that same vibe where college game day, going to be hype. So I think they can keep it close, hopefully. So I'm taking them +7.
And we will head to our rivalry game, and our resident rivalry expert, Sam Basil, give us the lowdown, give us the history.
Yeah, so this is probably, I feel like lately we've been doing some low key stuff, but I mean this week you can't get better than the Red River Showdown, right? One of the oldest college rivalry. I feel like I say that every game, every week, but college football is old. It's one of the oldest spectator sports in America, and there's nothing more heated, more contested than the Red River Showdown. So obviously, these two teams are separated by the Red River. So it's a long-standing rivalry. It's a tough one. It's one that's withstood conference moves. It's going to be moving from the Big 12 to the SEC, which was very controversial in the last couple of years. They're playing for this is known as the Red River Showdown, but there is a trophy. It's called the Golden Hat. It's been awarded since. Let me just pull up my notes here. Oh God. So yeah, it's been the awarded, since the 1929 season. And, both teams have always, kind of agreed to play this game in Dallas. For years it's been at the Cotton Bowl, but sometimes it's been, the deal was signed at the Texas State Fair. So, I mean, that just goes to show you, how much this rivalry is baked into the tradition of these schools, of these states, really. I mean, Texas football is, a huge part of, just Texas culture in general. And the same goes for Oklahoma. So it's going to be a good one. I think in a different year and a different time, this probably would have been where College Game Day was. I mean, considering the state of the Big 12, and we're kind of in a strange year for the conference. It's not, but I think no matter what, no matter where these teams are, with their records, no matter where they are in the Big 12, all those things disappear. When this game starts at the Cotton Bowl. So that's kind of my 2 cents of it. In terms of who I think will win, I think I'm gonna have to go Texas. I just don't. I just feel like Oklahoma is taking a little bit too long of a time to kind of recuperate from these 2 losses. I think they're still going to need some time to kind of get back into shape, and I think Texas is going to take it. So I'm going to go Texas 35, Oklahoma 28.
I like it. Who else wants to give their analysis?
Yeah, so I'll go real quick. So I'm going to go against Basil. I think Oklahoma's going to take it. I don't have a score. I'm just going to take them to win the game. This could go any way, right? Who knows what's going to happen? It's always interesting with the Red River Showdown. But, I just think Oklahoma losing the past 2 weeks against Kansas State and TCU, they need this win really badly. And who better to get it against than their rival Texas, right? I think they're at a crossroads right now in their season. Which way is their season going to go? Are they going to, turn it around and make it into a bowl game, or are they just going to kind of crumble? And I think this game is going to be very important to dictate which avenue that goes. This is interesting. These teams, the last 10 years, these games have been decided by 10 points or less. Usually a shootout, a lot of points scored, but it's usually a close game. Oklahoma started out 3-0. They lost those 2 games. Like I said, they need to bounce back. So I think I'm going to take Oklahoma to win this rivalry game.
I don't want to announce a winner. I don't. I'll just do Oklahoma +9, and that's all I'm going to say. I feel like this one's going to bite me in the ass either way, so I'm just going to keep it as simple. Oklahoma +9.
Another interesting point real quick, too, is Oklahoma's won the last 4 against Texas, so they're going for their 5th in a row. So I don't know. Some people will say, they have their number, but then others will say, look, Texas is kind of fed up of losing the last couple of years. They're going to want to come out and get that dub. So it's going to be a tight game. It's going to be fun to watch. I'm excited. It should be fairly competitive, and we'll see what happens. But I got to roll with the Boomer Sooners.
Yeah, I don't know. You just can't convince me that a team that nearly beat Alabama is not going to win this one, right? You've got Oklahoma without Dylan Gabriel potentially, who went out with an injury, who's their quarterback. Texas apparently may get their number 1, Quinn Ewers, back. I don't know. I think the writing's on the wall for me for Texas at this point. So that's where I'm going to pick, and I'm going to say they cover as well.
I think it's funny that this game 1 year ago was the fall of Spencer Rattler. I think this is when he got benched in the second half, and they won and they benched him, and then he was never the same. And look at him now; he's even worse than before. And we don't even hear from him anymore. So I think it's pretty crazy that it's been a whole year since that happened. I was in Vegas for my birthday, and I remember watching it dang, this guy really sucks. And now he's at South Carolina and nobody talks about him anymore.
Man, a lot of weird stuff has happened on your birthday, Gracie. Now you've just got the Mets potentially losing, and
it's always a wild sports weekend this weekend.
Crazy. You picked a good time to be born, or I guess maybe depending on your fandoms, a crappy time.
All right. So, that's our show. We got some good picks. I feel confident. Again, it's one of those weeks where the board was so, but we got a good college game day. We got a good rivalry week. We're saving up some bullets for USC in the near future, hopefully. And let's just come out with some winners. Let's come out on top.
Yeah. Can we put that disclaimer out that the board was not good this week? It was tough.
I hated it. It was
Like
tough.
I said, I didn't want to put any analysis into anything because I'm not fully confident in all of this. Like, there's some weeks I'm like, yes, there's no way this team's losing. I can't say that for one single game on this list. Not one.
That time of the season. It's that time of the season.
We have reached the proverbial witching hour of college football, I suppose.
Well, it's like what would you rather have though? Would you rather have like 55-point spreads that you don't even want to bet on in week 2, or do you want like 3.5 conference play spreads? I'm not going to say that there's a right answer to that because I really don't know. I mean, that's just the way it is in college football, right?
It's just so tough. I wish we had more, like maybe 10 or 14 spreads. I don't know. Like, I'd say the Texas one actually is the one that I feel the most comfortable about, weirdly, which probably means Oklahoma's going to win by 3 scores.
That's how it rolls. I mean, wait till we get to bowl season. That's where the wheels are either, fully greased or falling apart because, based on our records, we're limping right now, except for Cole.
Don't jinx
So
me.
no jinxing here, but that is our show. Week 6. We'll catch you. We'll first off catch us on Twitter, tweeting out the scores and games all weekend on House Enterprise and Bet the Houses. But we will catch you next week. We got Cole, Gracie, Jake, Basil, and myself. Take it easy.